Okay, so what you saw in that introduction there, welcome to the channel by the way, I'm John Cordy. If you wanted to like, leave a comment, subscribe, whatever, I think that will help us, me, get the channel to somewhere close to where it was before. I can't really do it without you though, so I guess that's why I'm using the word us. Anyway, so what you saw was fully improvised, and I don't know if you're like me, but I have a strong interest in playing guitar improvised and trying to get better improvisation. Because that's, for me, where I feel most musical, because I can create something from nothing. And I think also that's the thing that, you know, after a day's hard work doing whatever you're doing, or a bad day, the thing that I like about guitar is that you can come to it and you can start to express yourself in some way. And I feel like the expression of improvisation is closer to actually expressing something than executing either someone else's notes or playing something that you've played before, if you get what I mean. It's not really a value judgment, I just feel like improvisation is potentially where you start to just express what is going on in that moment. So the darker side of this is that I feel like we might have a bit of an unrealistic expectation about what is achievable in this kind of style, or what most people sound like most of the time when they're doing this. And I guess the point really is that a lot of people don't do much improvising, and you certainly don't see the bloopers and stuff, and you certainly don't see the things that didn't go too well, unless you specifically seek out some of these examples of players that are improvising that wouldn't ordinarily, or players that are improvising and, you know, sometimes things don't go so well. So maybe you check out some live videos of some guitarists that you're fans of, and you might find that they actually sound quite different to what is presented on Instagram or YouTube or on albums and stuff like that, because there's obviously a curation process and there's other takes and stuff like that that go on. So the final product that you see is often going to be kind of a level above what the average might have been, if that makes sense. So what I wanted to do was show you the takes that led up to that take and just discuss them quickly with you, if that's interesting at all. I thought that might be helpful for you to get some idea maybe of what went into that video for me. So I got home at 3 a.m. in the morning from Emily and Chris's wedding. Obviously a bit tired today, and it's been a stressful week, so I don't know. I think all of these types of things can play a factor in your playing as well. So how you feel, are you tired? What have you eaten that day? Do you feel stressed? Are you really wanting to do what you're doing? And, you know, negative mindset and that sort of stuff. So what I find, I guess my first piece of advice would be to try not to judge the stuff in the moment too much, because sometimes you might play something after you've made a mistake and you're thinking, right, well, that's a mistake or whatever. And the thing that follows might be kind of that breakthrough that you were looking for. And also what I find is that in improvisation, the breakthrough is like a moment, and then you fall back into normal stuff. So like I say, like you're presented in improvised music, the stuff that gets thrown to the wayside is generally the stuff which is not that inspired moment, and what you're presented of these amazing players is generally just going to be the inspired moment. But I think it makes more sense to try and think that there was kind of a whole session where it was full of uninspired moments. Does that make sense? Leave a comment if I'm gibbering. So my first take went like this. And this was one where I thought this type of line here could work, and the one that I ended on, but it quickly kind of went off piste in the moment. And the idea with some of this improvising is that I'm trying to execute ideas that I might have sort of practiced a long time ago, be spontaneous, and get them happening again. So that's kind of what I view improvising as well. You know, you're trying to be musical, but you're also trying to push yourself in some areas. In that moment, though, I thought this is something that I'd like to pursue way deep. Put that on silent. The second take, this one runs into the same issue. I didn't want to practice this part that I was doing here. As I say, I want to try and do it spontaneously, so it's just a matter of just starting again and seeing if I can execute it again, not actually running it slowly or anything. I'm just trying to see, is this thing kind of within my capabilities in an improvised setting. Then the third take. The dismount out of the alternate picked section was kind of scrappy, and towards the end some of the bends are overbent. So this is kind of an area that I think can make or break a solo. If the intonation or your bending is out of tune, then for me that's an area where I can put up with some imperfection, but if it's like noticeably sharp, I don't like the way that sounds. So that for me kind of broke that take, so I thought, right, let's go again. The fourth take, the alternate pick section was a bit better, but the end is scrappy with some string noise at the end of the solo, and I thought, well, that's kind of taking away the energy or whatever. Fifth take, I went back. I thought what I felt in the moment was that hitting the fourth degree at the start of the fourth bar over chord 1 felt a bit not melodic. Otherwise the take was kind of acceptable, but as I say in other past videos, playing the fourth degree of the scale over chord 1 can be a little bit tricky and sound a bit clashy. So then I went for another take. The alternate picked run here started a bit sloppy, but it ended kind of fine. But then at the end, there was an overbend again, like I said, that was a bit much. So I'm playing on a Les Paul here, So the string length, scale length, is a bit shorter than I'm used to, so maybe that's part of the reason for the overbending thing. Maybe a bit overzealous in the moment as well. And then the 7th take, the opening phrase was a bit rushed time-wise. Now this is a thing that I've had to work on for a long time, because I hated about my playing that my timing was just not very good, and still not really, but I can slowly make improvements and notice things. So there was a bit at the front where the kind of melodic phrasing was just, I was just ahead of the beat and it sounded a bit whatever. In the midpoint as well, I think it's just a bit much, and I think this is the point where I started to lose concentration. And then I did the other first take that you heard in the intro, which would have been now the 8th take, and that one was like a bit better, maybe fine, nothing amazing still, but it's kind of, that is what it was. There's little kind of mistakes in it, but the bending is generally fine. That alternate picked run was a bit sloppy still, but sort of executed without practicing in a way that I kind of thought, okay. But what I would do after this point, I think, is just focus on that little run and trying to execute that in other ways, maybe slower to start off with, because clearly it's not like a given that that would be achieved in the moment. So that's kind of how I would think about improvisation in some ways. You're trying to just create some melodies, and then maybe you take like one part of your trick bag and you think, right, let me try and fit this in somewhere musically to this improvisation. What I'm thinking about harmonically for this whole thing is just D flat major. That's the whole framework. So I'm just thinking about melodies that fit within D flat major, where they fit on the neck. You know, B flat minor pentatonic is the same thing for me. D flat major pentatonic is the same thing for me. These are all, for me, a version of D flat major. That's how I think about it. But that's kind of how that came to be. Let me know if that's at all useful. Let me know your thoughts, if there was any of those bits that you thought, I kind of thought that was an interesting idea, or I could see where you're going with that, or yeah, it definitely sounds like you're tired today. Yes, I am. So I don't know, not the most inspired playing in the world, but that is what I sound like. So hopefully that can help you in some regards, because I've spoken to a few of you on Skype this week that are interested in this improvising thing. It's not always going to be perfect, but I think it's about trying to find an inspired moment within your larger practice session, maybe. Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and I'm using the Eric Lead Gary preset for the solo tone. Cheers.